Conversations Worth Having. Written by Jackie Stavros and Sherry Torres. Summarized by goldreaders.com. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel. Introduction. Conversations play a crucial role in our interactions with others. The language we employ and the attitude we adopt have the power to significantly shape our experiences and those of others. Engaging in positive conversations can boost productivity, foster strong connections, and instigate positive change. Conversely, negative conversations can hinder personal growth, harm relationships, and leave us emotionally and physically drained. Fortunately, there is a method to ensure that our conversations are always of the highest quality, a process known as appreciative inquiry. This straightforward, practical, and extensively tested approach involves framing situations in a positive manner and asking questions that steer the conversation in the right direction. By doing so, everyone involved feels satisfied and listened to. In this summary, you will discover the importance of being mindful of the words we choose, as well as learn 2 techniques and 5 principles of appreciative inquiry. These tools will help guarantee that your conversations are meaningful and worthwhile. So, if you're ready, let's start conversing. In this summaries, you will gain insights into the underlying influences that impact every conversation, how to reframe problems and approach them from a different perspective, the significance of selecting the right mentors or teachers for personal growth. Chapter 1. Unseen Drivers in Communication. Alicia Patel is employed at a busy medical center in New England, and she is about to have a significant discussion. Negative feedback from patients has been received regarding one of the hospital units, likely due to recent changes in management and increased workloads, causing the staff to become overworked, stressed, and disengaged. Alicia is here to address the tired and tense group of nurses. Can a simple conversation be enough to reverse the situation and boost morale? The answer is yes. However, before we delve into Alicia's transformative conversation, let's explore what she used to say in similar situations before she learned to be mindful of the specific type of conversation she was having. There was a time when she would have said, "These reports are unsatisfactory. Every quarter, it remains the same or worsens. Clearly, you have done nothing to improve." This approach would lead to defensive excuses from the staff, leaving them demoralized and clueless about resolving the issue. These types of conversations are referred to as depreciative because they diminish the value of the situation. Alicia solely focused on stating the problem without investigating why it existed in the first place or seeking the staff's perspectives. Such conversations are unproductive and result in defensiveness and disengagement. So, what does Alicia do differently now? She employs appreciative inquiry, a technique based on adding value and asking questions. She inquires about what has been working well in the unit and requests examples of satisfied patients. After the initial surprise of such an unexpectedly positive direction in the conversation, the nurses share their stories, uncovering common themes and actions that can enhance patient satisfaction. Alicia's success is affirmed when one nurse exclaims, "This was so effective. I know things will improve after just one meeting with you." While not every interaction will yield such favorable outcomes, aiming for this type of conversation is crucial when striving for positive change in the workplace, relationships, or the community. However, before engaging in such conversations, there is an important step to take: being aware of the hidden influences within the situation. Think of it as an iceberg. The visible behaviors and actions represented by conversations are just the tip. while beneath the surface lie the unconscious drivers of those conversations. These drivers encompass beliefs, expectations, stress, biases, worldview, and even factors like sleep quality that can affect what is said. Similar to the Titanic, if you are unaware of what lies beneath the surface, these hidden influences can jeopardize a relationship. Conversations driven by these unseen factors often fall into the depreciative category mentioned earlier. To transform the discussion into a worthwhile conversation, you must find a way to bring these hidden influences into the open. Fortunately, there is a simple technique to help you tune in. It involves 3 steps: pause, breathe, and become curious. So, the next time you find yourself on the verge of a depreciative conversation, the first thing to do is pause. This halts the momentum before things spiral out of control. Take this moment to breathe. Breathing stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system, reducing stress. The most effective method is to take a deep breath, hold it briefly, exhale slowly, and repeat. Lastly, become curious. Ask questions that enable you to consciously take control of your thoughts. Consider the bigger picture, examine your assumptions, identify important missing information, and explore your emotions. This simple exercise prevents you from being controlled by these unseen influences and allows you to take charge, intentionally fostering the conversation you desire, one grounded in appreciative inquiry. Chapter 2: Shifting Perspectives for Productive Dialogue. Jerry Sternin is an employee of Save the Children, an NGO dedicated to enhancing the well-being of children globally. He faces a significant challenge: resolving the issue of childhood malnutrition in South Vietnam within a short span of 6 months. Given the time constraints, traditional approaches like providing clean water or implementing educational programs are deemed inadequate. In search of alternative solutions, Jerry poses a generative question: I wonder if there are families where the children are thriving? Generative questions are integral to the practice of appreciative inquiry, as they contribute value to a situation by uncovering hidden information, fostering shared understanding, generating fresh knowledge, or inspiring possibilities. Jerry's question successfully reveals previously unseen information as the answer indicates the existence of families with thriving children. This prompts him to pose another generative question, leading to the acquisition of new knowledge. Is there something specific that these children's mothers are doing differently? Jerry discovers that in families with thriving children, some mothers deviate from cultural norms. They consume more frequent meals, include shrimp and crabs in their diet, and continue eating even when sick. These practices contribute to improved nutrition. Jerry's generative questions unveil a simple solution that can be readily taught to other families. Such questions should be posed in any meaningful conversation. Once one is attuned and aware of any subconscious influences, they can genuinely inquire with curiosity and an open mind. Consider the example of Monica and her teenage son, Aiden, who are arguing about his request to borrow the car for the weekend. After the typical exchange regarding safety and independence, Monica asks a generative question: how can we reach a mutual agreement that allows you to use the car while ensuring I feel comfortable that you will make responsible decisions? This question initiates a fresh, positive conversation that shifts the focus towards their shared desires. This is where generative questions converge with the other aspect of appreciative inquiry: positive framing. We can examine this concept through the story of Mark, a mid-level manager in a Fortune 100 company, who needs to address the issue of his employee Melissa frequently arriving late for their regular Wednesday meeting. Fortunately, Mark is trained in appreciative inquiry methods. In the past, Mark would have been critical and direct, saying something like, "This is a problem. You're always late and miss Wednesday's deadlines. You must change." However, as we now understand, such conversations are depreciative and unproductive. Instead, Mark applies positive framing, which involves directing attention towards the desired positive outcome rather than dwelling on the problem itself. He employs a three-step process called flipping, defining the problem, identifying its positive opposite, and focusing the conversation on the potential impact of this positive opposite. Let's examine his approach more closely. Defining the problem is straightforward. Melissa is consistently late and consequently misses deadlines. What would be the opposite of this? Melissa is always punctual and meets deadlines. So far, so good. Now, what would be the outcome if this were true? Mark determines that the team would experience a strong sense of unity, improved performance, and enhanced trust. With this positive frame in mind, Mark initiates the conversation by emphasizing the significance of having a cohesive team with members who trust each other. Melissa agrees with this objective and becomes more receptive when Mark raises the issue of her tardiness affecting the team. Employing a generative question, he asks, "Is there anything problematic about Wednesday mornings?" Mark soon discovers that Melissa drops off her son at daycare on Wednesday mornings. The entire problem is resolved simply by starting the meeting half an hour later. The positive frame employed by Mark, combined with generative questions, transforms a potentially critical conversation into a productive one, yielding straightforward and effective solutions. Positive framing can be applied in nearly any situation to alter the dynamics of a conversation. This, along with the use of generative questions to broaden awareness, forms the foundation of appreciative inquiry. Keeping these concepts in mind, as we explore 5 principles that can serve as guiding factors in your conversations. Chapter 3. The 5 Conversation Principles. Let's examine the 5 fundamental principles that underlie all our conversations by looking at the story of a 7th grade student named Jamal and his 2 teachers. One of his teachers is Ms. Whitted, who teaches social studies, a subject that Jamal thoroughly enjoys and excels in. The other teacher is Ms. Summers, who teaches English, a subject Jamal doesn't particularly like. Despite displaying similar behavior in both classes, being a bit playful, occasionally gazing out the window, and occasionally submitting subpar assignments, Jamal's experiences with each teacher are drastically different. Ms. Whitted is more accepting of Jamal's occasional misbehavior. She believes that his playful behavior is a way for him to connect with his peers, and his habit of looking out the window helps him concentrate. When discussing a poor assignment with Jamal, she adopts an approach called appreciative inquiry, focusing on his successes and asking thought-provoking questions. In contrast, Ms. Summers tends to be more critical. She tries to directly address what she perceives as negative behavior, and conversations about assignments usually revolve around the problems. Both Ms. Summers and Ms. Whitted are caring teachers who want the best for Jamal. So why do their interactions differ so much? To understand this, we need to consider their personal beliefs, which shape their approach in the classroom. Ms. Summers grew up in a strict household where she was taught that success stems from discipline and paying attention. The mindset instilled in her was one of focusing, completing tasks, and achieving success. On the other hand, Ms. Whitted came from a more artistic background where patience and nurturing one's passion were considered key to achieving success. These personal beliefs shaped their interactions and conversations with Jamal. This exemplifies the first fundamental principle of appreciative inquiry, known as the constructionist principle. Our worldview is constructed based on our past experiences and interactions, influencing how we comprehend and engage in conversations. It is important to hold our viewpoints lightly and remain open to change. The next principle is the simultaneity principle. It suggests that when we speak or ask questions in a conversation, we impact the person listening, thereby altering their world. This explains the stark contrast in Jamal's attitude between the two classes. The lesson here is to choose our words carefully. The poetic principle states that every individual, group, or situation can be understood from multiple perspectives. This is evident in how Ms. Whitted interpreted Jamal's playfulness as a form of socialization, while Ms. Summers saw it as a distraction. It is essential to recognize that we have the choice to interpret things in different ways. The anticipatory principle suggests that our expectations influence our intentions in conversations. Ms. Summers anticipated behavioral issues, so that is what she addressed. On the other hand, Ms. Whitted anticipated Jamal's strengths and interests, focusing on those aspects instead. Lastly, the positive principle states that the more positive a question is, the more positive and enduring the outcome will be. Ms. Whitted achieved greater success with Jamal by asking more positive questions. The lesson here is to ask powerful questions that emphasize affirmation and possibility. In the final chapter, we will explore practical applications of appreciative inquiry and the 5 principles in your work, family, and community. Chapter 4. Applying appreciative inquiry in all aspects of life. You can apply appreciative inquiry to various aspects of your life. Conversations form the foundation of human interactions, shaping our social systems and organizations such as work, family, and community. In the preceding sections, you've heard numerous stories highlighting the benefits of appreciative inquiry in fostering positive conversations. To conclude, here's a final anecdote about Jackie Stavros's daughter, Ally, and her transformative experience at the age of 13. Ally's vacation was abruptly cut short when her father was diagnosed with stage 4 lymphoma. Her mother stayed with him in the hospital, while Ally and her brother were sent to live with different relatives. She could only visit her dad once a week briefly. Naturally, Ally was filled with fear about the uncertain future and asked her mother, "Will Dad die?" Instead of simply providing a comforting response, her mom trusted Ally enough to have an authentic conversation. She said, "Ally, someday we all pass away, but for now, we need to stay positive and appreciate what we have." This initiated a life-changing dialogue that Ally vividly remembers. In frustration, Ally asked, "How can I appreciate this situation?" Her mom shifted the conversation by asking a powerful question, "Tell me about your favorite moment with your dad." This positive and generative question led to a joyous recollection of all the wonderful times she had with her dad. Among the memories shared, Ally mentioned sitting with her dad on the porch, watching the sunset. In response, her mom said, "Tonight, I want you to sit on the porch and watch the sunset. At the same time, I'll push your dad up to the hospital window, and we'll watch it together." In the end, Ally's father recovered, and their family life returned to normal. Ally recognizes the significance of that interaction with her mom, how appreciative inquiry transformed a dark situation into a helpful and productive conversation. This moment taught her to adopt an appreciative mindset, which she still carries with her today. You, too, can embrace this mindset. By employing appreciative inquiry, you can alter the nature of your conversations with yourself, your partner, your children, your colleagues, and everyone in your life. Instead of blaming yourself for today's unaccomplished tasks, ask how you can be more effective tomorrow. Rather than simply expressing your unhappiness to your partner about watching TV every evening, engage in a conversation about the enjoyable experiences you had when you went out together. Instead of scolding and punishing your children for coming home late, express your concern for them and inquire about the difficulties they face in adhering to the current curfew. Similar to Alicia, the hospital administrator mentioned in the earlier chapter, refrain from criticizing your colleagues for poor performance. Instead, encourage them to identify instances of success and focus on those. Our interactions shape who we are. Ensure that your conversations are meaningful and worthwhile. Conclusion. By becoming aware of the unseen influences around you, adopting a positive perspective, and asking meaningful questions, you can foster conversations that are truly valuable. The outcomes you'll achieve might pleasantly surprise you. Additionally, here's some practical advice. Take a moment to observe your conversations throughout a day. Grab a sheet of paper or an index card and divide it into two sections, one labeled negative and the other labeled positive. After each conversation you have today, evaluate whether it contributed positively, appreciative, or negatively, depreciative. Place a tick mark under the corresponding category and jot down a few notes about your emotions during the interaction or the overall tone. By the end of the day, take time to reflect on your interactions and tally up the total number of positive versus negative conversations. This will give you a ratio. If the ratio falls below 3 positive conversations for every negative one, it indicates that it's time to implement some changes.